KWT slaying.
Salama family, salama, how y'all doing today? Hope you're blessed and highly favored. So this is a particular message that you're going to need to share because things are happening pretty much as I thought. Is we're approaching the winter time. Looks like we're going to be at war for the winter time, which means that you better have some extra water, some extra food, some extra batteries, right? Look like it's gonna happen. I don't know what can stop it at this point. Now, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put the link in the chat. I'm not gonna pin it this time because I'm not on my dual screen. So I'm gonna pin it if you want to join the discussion. Brother Karras, if you want to come on, please come on. Others, you want to come on, please come on. So we're gonna talk about what's going on. Now, a lot of times our people are the last to know. Okay, but it's bad. It's really bad. So I'm gonna share this particular article with you, and we're gonna talk about some other articles about what's happening. Okay, all right, Karis, and I'll share the link again. Well, let me see if I can pin it. Let me see first. Let's see. Uh, sort of hard without my dual screen, but I could still do it. So, all right. Okay, I'm gonna pin this. All right, if you want to join the stream, you can. All right, so I'm gonna share this article. Um, it's getting real. It's getting real. Like I say, I don't know at this point if it can stop, if it can be stopped because of what's happening. All right, so this article here, right, is from the Mirror. Whatever value you give on the Mirror, right? So it says British soldiers told to get ready for war against Russia and prepare loved ones. Warrant Officer Paul Carney says soldiers should prepare their families for the possibility of being sent to Ukraine to fight Russia in the war, which has now been going on for 6 months. The Army's top other ranks soldier says troops must be ready to fight Russia and should alert loved ones to a potential conflict. Warrant Officer Paul Carney warned that the UK was now shaping itself to meet the threat from Russia and was ready to counter any aggression. The time had come to prepare families and loved ones for the possibility of being sent to the East. He said the world had changed since Putin's invasion of Ukraine on February 23rd, 6 months ago on Tuesday, and British troops must be prepared for new realities. Now, y'all gonna find out what's really been going on. There's some chicanery type stuff going on, right? So, W.O. Carney, the Army's highest ranked warrant officer, wrote in Soldier magazine I want us all to check we are physically fit for operations, and it is also important we prepare loved ones and families who often have the hardest role in our absence. Thank you for the gift, Marilyn Newman. The Army's top other ranked soldiers said British troops must be prepared for new realities. My ask is that you have discussions about a potential deployment with them now. Find the numbers for the support networks and the relevant people who can help them, such as the unit welfare officer and padre. This is key as we could be out of contact for extended periods on tour. Making sure our loved ones have the support they need is vital for us too, as we're not going to give 100% on tour if we're worried about home. All right, so the British are telling their people to prepare for war with Russia. Okay, so that's not the biggest thing right there, right? There's more going on. There's more going on, and we're going to see. Brother Karras, welcome aboard. How you doing today?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Shalom, everybody. Um, well, I kind of figured why the Most High had me just kind of take a mental break today.
I was looking for you this morning. I said, "Where Brother Karras at?"
No, for real, the Most High had me take a mental break because you know, I saw it happen, but I really didn't get the context. I was watching a couple of other outlets and things of that nature today. And then I had emailed you and you and Minister Tayu behind the scenes, and I'm like, yeah, this is bad.
It's bad.
This is
Yep.
bad.
Yep.
And just for the audience here, just to kind of give you an understanding of what was going on, because a lot of this stuff was really starting to shape on up. Because I had seen something it was like it just made a lot of sense. Southern Prepper had come on out, and if I like listen to a lot of his stuff, is very unbiased, and something that he said really just validated the whole thing. And this was for his boots on the ground update. It was yesterday, and he was saying that the farmers were talking about their contracts with China not being able to be fulfilled, and if their contracts weren't fulfilled, that was $250,000 per contract that the farmers would be responsible for. And see, as I had said, family, the whole thing with these commodities is that these contracts, that's life, that's their livelihoods. And again, with the way that this society is, what a lot of people always think is, well, no, they're going to feed the American people before they feed anyone else. And the sad thing is, no, that's not how it goes. These contracts are they feed everyone else and then they feed you. So what we're doing is we're getting the leftovers of a dwindling supply. Don't matter how many natural disasters are in there. Don't matter how many active God clauses are in there. Everything is being dwindled. And so now that was step one in the economic warfare. Now, step two is you had Ukraine, you had the Azov Battalion. These folks run out there. They're paramilitary. However, they're still being supported by all of the other nations. So it's still being recognized as a military outfit of some sort. So now, when that military outfit had been running rogue, which is why even when you understand the way that the Pentagon had operated with certain groups of Ukrainian military, and I happen to understand that firsthand working with Ukrainian officers where when I was on active duty in 2013-14 time frame, and literally seeing their whole system collapse during that protest. And I'm sitting there watching the protest along with the officer, and I'm asking him, like, "What does that mean for you?" And he said, "Honestly, I don't know," because really, he didn't know. He really didn't know. And so the reality of this whole thing was when that government came to power, there were certain stipulations of how you could train, how you could interact, and basically how the money was being funded up until late or early this year when all of those safeguards and things of that nature had been removed. That's part of the executive funding or the congressional funding, matter of fact, that comes about with all of those aid packages and things of that nature. So therefore, if you provide material, right, support to that government, anything and everything that happens is basically on the table. This is why we are just steamrolling to this reality of the inevitable conflict. And that is when CNN's covering it, yeah, you know it's getting ready to go down.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to some right now. Really, some of the chicanery stuff that's going on that's going against international norms. And understand this too. I talked about the connection between the Germans and the Saxons and stuff, and this relationship that's going on, which is why you see America working with so-called Nazis, because there's a relationship there. Even during Operation Paperclip, where a bunch of Nazis came to work for the U.S. and other, and they, Russia got some of them as well. So there's some stuff going on around here. So I'm gonna share this video with you all, and we're also going to talk about this in a little bit more detail.
It is a story that reads like a Hollywood spy thriller, one that Moscow Security Agency is telling the world. Russia has blamed Ukraine for the killing of Daria Dugina, the daughter of Vladimir Putin's close ally, Alexander Dugin. Dugina was killed on Saturday by a bomb that blew up her car. Moscow now says the bomb was planted by a female Ukrainian spy. Russia's intelligence agency identifies this alleged assassin as 43-year-old Natalia Vovok. The FSB published videos showing Vovok entering Russia in her Mini Grey Cooper. The security service says Vovok arrived in Russia on the 23rd of July. She was accompanied by her 12-year-old daughter. She lived in the same apartment building as that of Daria Dugina. A video published by the FSB even showed her entering the same building. Russia alleges Vovok detonated the bomb with a remote-controlled device. She and her daughter then fled to Estonia in their Mini Cooper, according to the FSB. Russian media also said her father was supposed to travel in the same car, but the Putin ally seemed to have changed his mind the very last minute. Dugin is an ultra-nationalist philosopher who advocates a vast Russian empire. He has been a major influence on the Russian president, and many even call him Putin's brain. And this has led to speculation that he was the intended victim. Russia has linked Vovok to Ukraine's security services, accusing her of being a member of the Azov battalion. And she is now on the country's most wanted list. Russia has now asked Estonia to extradite Vovok back to the country. If they refuse to do so, Moscow has promised strong action. Foreign Minister Lavrov saying that there will be no mercy for those behind the murder.
All right, so I'm gonna read some articles about that, and I'm gonna get Brother Karras's input on that. So, Hal Turner, it says Russia threatens military response against NATO country over car bombing. That's what you just heard in that video. So there's a gigantic breaking news out of Russia. The Russian government today said there will be a military response over the car bombing, which killed Daria Dugina in Russia over the weekend. The suspected assassin is allegedly hiding out in a specific named country, which is a NATO member. That's Estonia, from what they said, right? Update. The second NATO country is now openly instructing its soldiers to prepare your loved ones for your departure to fight Russians in Ukraine. Russia has told the country of Estonia there will be a military response unless Estonia extradites the bombing murder suspect Natalia Vovk of the Ukraine National Guard. Estonia is a member of NATO. Vok is now charged in Russia and with the bombing and murder. Fled Russia after the bombing via the Peskov border crossing into Estonia and is allegedly being kept hidden in secret NATO facility near Amati Air Base. If Estonia does not extradite the perpetrator of the murder to Russia, there are grounds for harsh actions against Tallinn for harboring a terrorist, said Vladimir Zhabarov, a senior member of the Russian Federal Council. So they ended up taking out a non-combatant, right? So let's go on. On the edge, Moscow, Kiev, the murder of Dugina creates a new scene of ignition on the front of the war. Fear of severe Russian retaliation against Ukraine. At a time when the Russian authorities are now unofficially blaming Ukraine for the bloody car explosion that claimed the life of Dugina, daughter of the ultranationalist intellectual Alexander Dugin, the anxiety in Kiev is growing and the scenarios for the continuation of the war are multiplying. Although the Kremlin had initially chosen to keep the tone low, the allegations of the FSB, Russia's intelligence service, turned the tables, and now the balance in Moscow and Kiev is borderline. If it turns out that there is a Ukrainian connection, then we should be talking about state terrorism by the Kiev regime. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said on Sunday. And a few hours later came the conclusion of the FSB, which, of course, raises many questions regarding its reliability. According to Russian special investigators, Dugina's murder was planned and carried out by the Ukrainian secret services, claiming that the perpetrators fled to Estonia after the murder. Already immediately after the assassination of Dugina, how much more so now, the fear of violent retaliation by Russia towards Ukraine has intensified, with the scenario that the developments on the war front are rapid, gathering more and more possibilities. And this, as for the first time since the Russian invasion, Ukraine will have reached as far as Moscow and as far as a family that allegedly has close ties to the highest echelons of the Kremlin. In the wake of this attack, then Ukrainian forces are preparing for an escalation of Russian attacks with an eye on August 24th, the day the country's independence is celebrated. Ukrainian President Zelensky has already put the country on heightened alert for the next few days, while mass gatherings have been banned for the next 4 days. At the same time, the country's military warned that Russia had taken 5 warships and submarines carrying cruise missiles into the Black Sea, and that Moscow was deploying air defense systems in Belarus. As the Washington Post points out, the assassination creates a new scene of ignition on the war front. After the explosion in Dugina's car, Denis Pushilin, a prominent separatist leader and key figure in the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic, immediately blamed Ukraine without providing evidence, demanding revenge. For his part, Andriy Yusov, a spokesman for Ukraine Military Intelligence Directorate, refrained from commenting on Dugina's murder. But noted the following: I can say that the process of destroying the Russian people has begun. The Russian people will eat and devour themselves from inside. The explosion, however, caused a tsunami of speculation from analysts that it could have been an internal attack by those dissatisfied with the course of the war. The origin of the attack is obviously internal, not external. Nicholas Tinzer, who has, who has served in the French government as a senior civil servant and is an expert on international security, tweeted on Sunday. The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee told CNN on Sunday that lawmakers have not been briefed on the incident or who is behind it. There are so many factions and infighting in Russian society and the Russian government that anything is possible, he said. He expressed his belief that he was not behind the attack. We've seen terrible war crimes by Russia against Ukraine, and Moscow should be held accountable, he said. And I certainly would never want to see an attack on civilians from Ukraine. So we see all of that happening. And I want to share one more thing just to show you how severe things are because of this assassination. And remember, she's a non-combatant. All right, so it says here, Kiev evacuates eastern Ukraine. Largest movement of people in Ukrainian history begins sweeping Russian bombing. The Zelensky government is proceeding with an order for the mandatory evacuation of the Eastern Front under the burden of the overwhelming superiority of the Russian army. The retreat cannot be ruled out to be linked to a possible Ukrainian capitulation attempt in order to end the war by dividing Ukraine and save Odessa and Nikolaev for Kiev. Zelensky admitted in his speech that the count has been lost. The Russian army has unleashed tons of ammunition. The total number of various cruise missiles that Russia has used against us is close to 3,500. The blows of the Russian artillery simply impossible to measure. Now, we see here, right? Don't forget when I started off this particular show, we talked about the British soldiers getting ready for war against Russia. We have this assassination of Dugina, and now we see that Zhirinovsky is telling the people of Ukraine to get out of town. What's your thoughts on this, Karis? Do you think we're about to go into World War III full-fledged?
Okay, I had already said this. World War III actually began last year. It began with a lot. Anything that's done militarily, you have an economic or financial operation tied to that. It's just the fact that you don't see the bombings, you don't see any kinetic actions until everything has been exhausted for the economics. And again, right now, this is either I don't know what the provocations and things that are, which nobody will ever know. However, the question was going to be, when would the kinetic action start? And people were always speculating, well, it'll start maybe February. It will start maybe when the heating and cooling bills start to really ramp on up, especially in Europe with the heat needed for maybe a harsh winter, since this was a really bad summer. But here's the thing. The reality is, when you are taking out a civilian with a military, that technically is on the lines and on the grounds of it is terrorism. It actually is terrorism, and it is really it's state sponsored. So the problem is, now everything that Iran had done and all this other stuff, now we're seeing that being employed by Ukraine. So here's the thing. It's a bad look by the Ukrainian government, just as a whole. So, if you know that that's a bad look by your government, now you have to literally evacuate your people because now they're going to get ready to topple the Ukrainian government. And so, my guess and my question is, you know, when will that when will that operation kick off in full effect, right? When will they start their bombing campaigns? How will they start their bombing campaigns? Will they have an air campaign? Will they, shoot, have a ground campaign to 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 uh, to kind of subdue any type of anti-aircraft missile systems, right? There's a lot of things that are there, and the question is the speed of the response. Generally, Russia doesn't really take that long to respond because their responses have generally been in about 2 or 3 days, which is actually pretty fairly quick, you know, um, and it's honestly because they're landlocked, you know. So um, with that particular case, they don't have to really do that much heavy mobilizing, right? They already have a presence that's on in there. So really all they have to do is just backfill all the folks that they have on in there. And then, it's just on. It's going to be on and earnest. Now the question is going to be domestically, what does that look for? How does that look for us? And I would kind of say, look, if gas prices haven't responded yet, and they will, I need to go ahead and fill up my car because that's the first tragedy, right? Is going to be oil and other things, and the second tragedy is right. There's going to be no exports going on of any type of grain or flour or things of that nature. Everybody's done. So so we're going to see this really have that domino effect, as you saw with the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand and back in Yugoslavia back in the
Yeah.
day.
Doesn't it
You know,
remind you of that?
it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a historian, and I I tend to be a historian of, of especially European and affairs. Nothing gets kicked off in Europe until something really close happens, right? And that proximity of, the connection to the higher up, which we're talking about, two connections away. Well, that just ratcheted up, the reach out and touch you type syndrome. So you have to understand it's very fearful. If that happened to someone here in the United States, oh, that response would be very fearful, right? And fear is a major driver of of impulse, right? And so impulse control and maybe the lack thereof, and maybe, hey, look, we knew that they're going to do this, but this is kind of an extreme, especially a civilian. This is a civilian. It's like taking out a general's, family
Daughter or
member.
something. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you get what I'm saying? It's like, this person is going to school in the fall, going to college and stuff like that. They're just living their
Exactly.
life and then they get assassinated.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, no one would actually stand for that, in in the ideal normal world, which we're far from. Normalcy, went out the window. But
And it
the
happened inside Russia.
yeah, and it happened. Yeah, it happened in their on on their soil, on their sovereignty, and that is where a lot of people don't get this. That is actually the provocative act of war. So you know, it's like, hey, you had a chance to wheel, your dogs in, your ace off folks. And really, it's kind of the same mannerisms of, you know, the campaign wasn't in World War II. You had regular forces, and then you had Nazi affiliated forces. And every German that was there and alive at that time would tell you, you had regular forces, and then you had Nazi affiliated forces. Those regular forces, they gave up, and then you had the SS and all the other hardened Nazi forces with their extreme, religious banter, that encapsulated them to, fight to the death scenario. While the other German army was like, "Yeah, we're done. Just put us in a camp. Let us go to work. Let us, do what we need to do under your supervision, and we're all right." you know but this is kind of what you see in terms of how this thing is faction, and really it showed the lack of control that the Ukrainian, not just military but also the Ukrainian government had. So, if anything, who's to say, who's the bad guy here? And I'm not going to say it, but um, we can kind of surmise it.
Yeah, and the thing is, when we talk about civilians being caught up in war, um, it's going to hit everybody, right? I mean, to me, she's the first of many, but I think she could be the catalyst for this going hot, super hot. It's already hot, but super hot, and spreading across the globe. And also, it's remember the scripture talks about, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. The whole world was what filled with violence, and that's what we're seeing right now. It seems that just everything happening. Like yesterday, we showed how the droughts are happening. Right, the judgments are all across the land, and so now what we're dealing with is the increase of the war, and the war is going to touch everyone, right? That's the problem. And a lot of people don't want to admit this fact, right? So we have also another story. Green light for military solutions. Serbian tanks line up on border with Kosovo. Armed formations move in every way. All right. Uh, the situation on the Serbian Kosovo border is particularly critical, as for the first time, the Serbian army is moving tanks and armored personnel carriers in any way, which has not happened in the crisis so far. It was preceded by the extraordinary speech by a Vucic, with which the Serbian president put NATO and Albanians in front of historical responsibilities. Either you gather the Albanians or there will be a military operation by the Serbian army, said the Serbian president. Vucic's emotionally charged televised address to the Serbian people comes after talks between the leaders of Serbia and Kosovo that were brokered by the European Union in Brussels collapsed a few days ago. Serbia is ready for conflict in the region. Videos show the transport of M84, T-72 tanks, armored personnel carriers, as well as artillery forces. Information indicates that there is a large movement of military forces in the east of the country in the city of Zaječar. The 72nd Special Forces Brigade of the Serbian Army was transferred from its base in Pančevo in Novi Pazar, led by Lieutenant German Miroslav Taljan. The movement of Serbian forces is even done by rail, which increases the war alarm. I don't need the music, right?
You gotta love the music, huh? It's like, yeah, that's the powerful impact statement of that music.
Exactly. So we have this going on in Serbia, and you got to understand, once again, this is really proxy wars going on here, right, between NATO and Russia. So it's increasing. More of the pieces on the board are becoming active. The knights on the board are becoming active. The bishops, right, the queen, obviously, all to attack the king. Now, most people don't understand that the king that they're trying to attack is really indirectly us. Why do I say that? Because you have to look at how war is done today. It's done through proxy. It's a distributed idea, right? You have things happening over here, so I can affect things over there, right? It's an indirect assault. So once we woke up, they decided that they're going to shut down this world. They're going to gain control of all of the world resources. They're going to control and enslave everyone through, microchips, right? And the whole idea is to imprison us so that we can't go back, we can't get our inheritance, right? And they can control everything, every part of the world, and we will never be able to escape. When they mentioned that we are supposed to be perpetual slaves, they meant it, right? But how do you enslave people who are spread out all over the world? Well, you have to control the world. How do you control the world? Well, all of the stuff that you've seen happen over the last 2 years, as well as war. Because I guarantee you, when this war is over, you're going to be like, anything for peace, anything for fresh water, anything so I could go get my Big Mac, anything so I could go get my Popeye chickens again, anything so I could get back to normal. And normal is never going to come. What's your thoughts about this Serbian war that's about to form as well? All at the same time that the British are saying they're going to war with Russia, which means the U.S. is going to war with Russia, which means NATO is going to war with Russia.
Well, I'm gonna say it like this again. I love history. I am an historian. I do my little, not not like Benny Israel, but no, European history, you have to understand, is the crossroads of divided empires, and those empires were divided by a lot of other religious um, influences, and so you see the how Kosovo and Serbia are, because you've had two distinct, they say ethnics, but it's actually religious um, functionalities, right? And you can kind of say maybe ethnic to a degree based off of the Turkish, Ottoman or Ottomani influences that you have with one particular group, and then you have another ethnic group that tried to stay away from it. Okay, well, hey, you want to stay there, go there with the Turks. Those are, you're predominantly Arab, influenced, ethnicity and things of that nature. And the other ones just said, look, we're going to remain, Roman Catholic and more based in the European model, which is what we see right here. But then you also have, along the same lines, is that you had the communistic, or that sphere from World War One that's now popping on up, and that sphere has always been there. It didn't matter how many decades. We're not talking about 100. Well, really, more than 100 years. We're talking about a few decades. And in those few decades, the tensions never really simmered down. They just try to have a band aid. Well, we have the EU, we have, this, have that. Again, now we're back to the tensions, right? Now we're back at a point that, who's going to fight, and in my opinion, I look at that as the linchpin goes off when Russia goes off, and let me kind of explain this. It's like a chain reaction, which is the best way to identify it. As soon as Russia goes off, then you're going to have China and really Eastern Europe, which is your Kosovo, Serbia, and then all the other former Yugoslavian states. They're going to try to. They don't know what to do. They won't know what to do. They're just going to shut their borders and pray that things don't leak on over, and they eventually will, because a lot of those Baltic areas are very major corridors towards the Mediterranean and other parts of the Mediterranean. So that's going to shut down. Iran is then going to pop on up. Syria is going to cause problems with the Eastern Mediterranean, which is going to affect the Suez, and that's going to affect a lot of major trade routes. So then you're going to systematically have an economy that's going to grind to a halt. So the major influence is also going to be South Africa, and South Africa will probably deploy frigates as well as other um, warships to halt any type of trade route or coming to the United States. And then you also will have South China Sea, and that'll pop off with Taiwan, and then any other trade routes coming to America will be pinched off. And so those major factors a lot of people don't look at in terms of the global response effort that will be done at that time. And then for the United States, it's just going to be a matter of time of, we have to get the material out, because if not, you don't have cash. You get what I'm saying? The farmers will not have cash. The produce will not have cash. So invariably, you're going to have a loss of even more commodities off the table, because it's like you've dug yourself into the, well, I still have to pay my enemy, but even though my enemy wants to destroy me, I still have to pay my enemy. What does that sound like? Does that not sound a little bit similar to what we've gone through? Do you see the model that's getting ready to happen? And the model is literally here. The problem is they're not recognizing that model just yet, because it's going to take effect in such a dramatic fashion that when the people, they're going to start turning on each other here in America. They'll start turning on each other in a matter of weeks when they start figuring this on out.
Oh, we're going to talk about that in a second, too. Exactly. So I want to share this article because what you said is so true, Karis. This article here, China prepares for conflict. Politicians hand power to military. A particularly disturbing revelation comes from China. In July 2022, a Chinese businessman making medical equipment announced that local officials had asked him to convert his production lines in China so they could produce items for the military. Communist Party officials, he said, issued similar orders to other businessmen. In addition, Chinese academics argue that the ongoing expulsion of foreign colleagues from China's universities appears to be a preparation for hostilities. The People's Republic of China is preparing to go to war and is not hiding its efforts. Amendments to the National Defense Act brought into force transfer powers from politicians to military officials. In general, the amendments reduce the role of the central government state council by shifting power to the CMC, the Communist Party's Central Military Committee. Specifically, the state council will no longer supervise the mobilization of the People's Liberation Army. As Xi Jinping of Zhuchao University told Hong Kong South China Morning Post, the CMC is now formally responsible for formulating national defense policy and principles, while the state council becomes a mere implementer, providing support to the military. In a sense, these amendments were a window into war preparation. The recent changes to China's national defense law that reduce the state council's power are largely political posturing. Richard Fisher of Virginia-based Center for International Assessment and Strategy said after the amendments went into effect, the Chinese Communist Party and especially the existing CMC have always had the highest authority in decisions about war and peace. Why then are we interested in the amendments to the National Defense Law? The amendments, Fisher tells us, demonstrate China's ambition to achieve nationwide levels of military mobilization to wage wars and give CMC formal authority to control future Chinese capabilities for global military intervention. The revised National Defense Law also incorporates the idea that everyone should participate in national defense. The Communist Party Global Times reported, quoting an unnamed CMC official as saying, all national organizations, armed forces, political parties, civic groups, enterprises, social organizations, and other organizations should support and participate in the development of national defense, fulfill national defense tasks, and carry out national defense missions in accordance with the law. As Fisher said, for the past 40 years, the Chinese Communist Party has been preparing for war and is now accelerating its plans. The party being ready for battle leaves nothing to chance. On April 22nd, Finance Ministry and central bank officials met with representatives of dozens of banks, including HSBC, to discuss what Beijing might do if punitive measures are imposed on China. The holding of the emergency meeting, as reported by the Financial Times, is ominous. Officials and attendees did not mention specific scenarios, but one possible trigger for such sanctions is believed to be a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. The fact that Chinese officials held the meeting is a clear indication that Beijing is planning military action. Be ready for battle. This is how Hong Kong's South China Morning Post summed up Chinese ruler Xi Jinping's first order to the military in 2019. In January of that year, he gave a major speech at the CMC on preparations for war, and the speech was then broadcast nationally. Foreign analysts debate whether China will go to war soon. The Chinese political system has become less transparent over time, so it's unclear what senior leaders are thinking. Now, my question to you, Brother Karras, is with the movement of forces of both the Russians, the Chinese, right? I'm not going to even talk about what's going on with Turkey today, and then we also have UK explaining that they're about to go to war. How far away do you think this is? It seems to me all of this is being coordinated for the wintertime. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's very ominous when the UK says something. Well, guess who's right behind the UK?
Yep,
Exactly.
exactly.
So we'll just leave that alone right there.
Yep,
okay.
Exactly.
Now everything else, especially with China, we already knew that they're biding their time because they're trying to see the response from Russia. And like I've always said, look, China's the manpower, Russia's the military power, right? They're going to coordinate based off of how Russia goes. Okay, if Russia says, "Okay, we're ready," we have the personnel in place and we have everything in place. Look, don't think that it's just they're waiting on Chinese manpower to get in place. No, it's really making sure that they have their command and control. All their military, operational things together. How they're going to conduct battles. You just saw that. Or lack thereof of it, last week. I just saw in the Miami Herald, they finally addressed in the Miami Herald, no kidding, on Friday, late Friday edition, that, Venezuela with Iran, Russia, and China doing exercises. And that was, the exercises started on the 15th and they said something on the 19th, right? So my thing is that now all this happens when everybody's coordinating. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Well, here's another issue of this. You now have a southern thing going on, because what happens if Venezuela moves their ships into the southern Gulf of Mexico, into the southern parts of the Caribbean? It's not just going to be Venezuela that's doing that. It's also going to be Russia and Chinese ships. That's the whole thing. Look. And now their ships are over there as part of a quote unquote exercise.
All at the same time, right?
I love it, man. It's like, oh, I didn't see that one coming.
So let me ask you, Brother Karras, do Do you still think we got 2 years?
Man, not with that digital crypto dollar, man. I don't think we got 2 months left.
So the digital crypto is what? December 13th they're talking about?
December 13th. Why does it gotta be on the 13th, man? That's like you know that's bad luck.
So we know that with this war, it's the excuse to implement totalitarian control under the idea of martial law because of world war, right? And so then they implement all of a sudden the digital currency to control the population through social credit tracking system. I'm like, does it all make sense to you?
Look, my social credit won't get it, and the bank says I can't. No, you know what I'm saying, Martin? You know what I'm saying? No. Oh man!
But you know you ain't got no job, Tommy.
But you know what I'm saying? I had to do some reports real quick before I jump on this live. You know how it is. You know how it is.
You ain't got no job. I will share this other video here because this is an article we haven't talked about it, but I'm gonna talk about this after we show it. So, all right, it's real short.
Says Iran is getting ready to send Russia hundreds of drones to use on the battlefield in Ukraine. As the Kremlin says, Russian President Vladimir Putin will visit Iran next week. Now, if Iran does provide military support to Russia, it would raise the stakes in Ukraine and test the U.S. warning to other countries not to aid Putin's war. Foreign correspondent Tom Sufi-Burridge joins me live from Kyiv, Ukraine, for more on this. Tom, how significant of an escalation would Iran aiding Russia be, and how could the U.S. and its allies respond to that?
Well, Dan, the U.S. already has considerable sanctions on Iran. Relations between Iran and the U.S. and the U.K. are pretty dire. The EU, European allies of the U.S., of course, in this war and more broadly, have a bit more leverage, I think, on the Iranians. But I think it's no massive surprise that the Iranians are lining up with the Russians. Broadly speaking, their rhetoric since the war began here is very much in line with Moscow's take. I think some analysts might point to whether or not this says something about the weaponry, the stocks of weaponry that Russia has at its disposal right now, and whether this sort of says something. You look at the fact that Russia has been pounding Ukrainian cities out east on a daily basis. They've been using up a hell of a lot of their weaponry and munitions, and maybe this is a sign that Russia now needs to go to other countries to increase its arsenal in this war.
Now,
So, Brother Karras, does this not remind you of the people we see in 2 Ezra 15? You know, the Asians, the Iranians, the Karamanians, right? Which is what 2 Ezra 15 calls them. I'm like, everything seems to be here. What's your thoughts on this prophetically?
Oh, well, you know, it's all just a coincidence.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. This is just regular life. Look, you're not... Oh, you know, in terms of the drones, that's bad news.
Yeah.
It's bad news because they've been using drones for now years. Iran's used drones for years. Every time they use a drone, what they do, they look at, you know, their after action reports. They recalibrate things. They get things hardened to where it becomes basically harder and harder to bring down. And they provide different systems to where, you know, things can be done autonomously to an extent. So, you know, and of course the with the technology that's readily available, you know, you just slap something on there and let it go, and it's out the window. You know, you don't have to be very sophisticated with it. You don't have to be trained that much. You can just put in somebody's hands and be like, yo, just go run.
Everybody been trained through video games, right?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they be seeing those little e-sport things, the little, you know, flyers or whatever. and these folks they don't have to do anything very spectacular, to get something done. And so with that said, we have to we have to be careful because all eventually this is just the eventuality of things, the eventually meeting the reality, meeting what we're seeing right now. It's all going to start heading this way, right? You're going to have the wave from the east and you're going to have the wave from the west, and it's all heading this way. So when you're seeing this thing happen, look, we you can see when Europe falls, there's not going to be much left to pick on up, or there's not going to be anybody that is going to be left to pick up Europe. And let me just kind of explain this to you. The way that this thing went, and even for my British folks that are listening, what did you have during the time after World War II? Who helped in the cleanup efforts in France and in Germany and in Italy and in Spain? Well, a lot of that cleanup effort was done by Black folks, by the diaspora or the diaspora, however you want to call it. So, for the Windrush, right, they're sending them on back. But let me tell you, when disaster strikes and calamity happens, and they need a cleanup crew, well, they're going to put their hand on out and say, hey, come on over and help us get cleaned on up. Now, the reality of this is when the destruction happens, there's not going to be a cleanup crew for them, which is why when you read Jeremiah 50 and 51, when you read how Amos goes in chapter 9, when you read how Joel chapter 3 happens, none of the forces of the Gentiles are flowing to them. Because why? Because everything is really destroyed, right? You won't have an infrastructure. Well, why? Because everybody wants to get with those folks. Because you have to understand, if there's nothing to really get them grounded, then they're going to be in disarray. And again, let me explain this thing to you. That disarray, it happened here in the United States also. Don't let people confuse you. It happened in the Civil War. And right after the Civil War, what did you have? Peonage laws. Up until when? 1903. Well, you are free, but you're now a criminal because you were walking on the side of the road minding your business. Come here and help rebuild.
Yep.
So now all of those resources that they had access to will more than likely not be available. And I look at it like this. It just takes a little bit of a pop off in Europe for the US to go crazy. That's all it is. The moment that people see in the US that war's there and all this and all that, well then guess what's going to happen? Things are going to inflate so dramatically that it's literally going to be a day's worth of work for a loaf of bread. Well, why is that? Because the grain. You're going to have a grain shortage. You're going to have every shortage that's imaginable because ships still have to leave this place. This is why the merchants say, alas, alas, she's fallen, right? They can't believe she's fallen because why? Even though she's being attacked, then guess what? They're still having to get money in. The contracts still have to be fulfilled. So, this is all. I'm not going to say, well, we're going to be here till in 2023. Honestly, it may bubble up and it may go back down. But I'm going to tell you this. I don't know if it's going to go back down on this point, because here's really the reality of the situation. People are going to be more scared because here's the thing. in the rule of warfare, it's also unwritten. Look, if and you did you here's the thing, and I'm gonna say this, and I hope you all pay attention to this. Generally, in the diplomatic arena, with something like this, there's usually about a 72 to 96-hour response. And you know what? You want to know what that response is? Other nations or countries going, saying on the down low. They'll never say anything in the media, but they'll say on the down low, "Hey, that wasn't me. I don't know where that came from. I don't condone this." Oh no, rest assured, Putin is right now sitting up there getting it's a the phone lines are busy. The phone lines are busy. Hey, that wasn't me. I don't condone that action. That wasn't what we're all about.
Yeah, they hit
Because
you in the
why?
back of the head and hide their hands.
Yeah, but you want to know why? Because here's the thing. Oh, you want to play like that? You want to play like that? Okay. Who's gonna get that next dose of that not Chuck or whatever agent that they had to poison that one dude in the UK? You know what I'm saying? Who's gonna get a dose? But yeah, no, they have a window, and you're gonna have countries. You will have countries um, on the down low actually not they'll be going against it. They'll be saying that, hey, that's not what I look. I'm gonna tell you this. You're more than likely you probably had like France and you probably had your Germany like capitulate saying no, that's something that we would do because you want to know why it's just proximity. You'll never hear anything from the US or the UK, but I'm going to tell you this. You better listen very closely. Listen to your BBCs or your DWs or your France 24 and see what they're going to say. Hey, you're going to hear some countries saying, well, you know what, we don't condone that attack because it's on out there. But you'll see they'll say like one little scroll, on CNN or one little scroll on BBC, and that's really what you'll get, you know. But again, you won't hear anything coming from not this side of the house, which is why, look, um, and it also happens. Let me also get this. It also happens. Do you know that we're now a year past Afghanistan or the Afghan debacle?
Oh, after we left, huh? It's been a year?
Yeah, it's been a year.
Wow, that went by quick.
Yeah. And I was like, look, just give it a year and we're gonna be right back in warfare. Well,
Well,
I'm telling you,
look like that's gonna happen.
you know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay. Yeah, I think we kind of saw that one taking shape and we saw that coming.
So
You
you know
know?
what's interesting, Brother Karras, when we look at the scripture, Jeremiah 50:51, we look at second Esdras, the scripture shows us that the war happened somewhere else. Why? Because then the Bible tells us, then they turn towards Babylon and come after her. So apparently the war started someplace else, right? And then they're coming after her. So it's like, I'm like, everything is lining up. What you think about that?
Well, yeah, because remember the scripture said, look, they're going to be watching at astonishment, right? And it's not necessarily us. It's going to be those that are here with us, our other flavor believers, right? Or lack of belief thereof, because here's the thing. It's hard for them to really get this discerning because the sad reality is everything is lining up with scripture. Plagues, pestilence, famine, war, right? We're seeing it lining on up. We're seeing that resources and goods are they're not going to be as available right now. Look, when gas prices and now you have another extrinsic factor, right? Of an existential crisis happening somewhere else that's going to do what? That's going to affect prices here. Because why? Because the US will have to backload Europe with petroleum and natural gas. So don't think that that's not going to happen. That is going to happen. We're just getting a lot of the strategic reserve pumped out to us. Strategic reserve, that oil is getting pumped out to us. And then when we have to backfill that strategic reserve, then the gas prices are going to double from what it is right now. So that was the whole, inflationary thing. If you didn't know, they opened that up back in March, April. It just takes a little bit of time in order for those futures to go through. So it's going to bubble up, gas is going to bubble up, and then gas is going to plummet back down because you won't have people really driving. You won't have companies then really flourishing. Okay, well, I'm going to cancel that order because I don't need it because nobody's going to buy it. So, what you tell me.
Yeah, I mean, right now we know there's going to be just shortages everywhere at all levels, right? Lack of food, lack of water, right? The whole all of the stuff we see in the Book of Revelation, like you were saying earlier, days wait for a loaf of bread, right? We're here, right? And war causes that. Now, one thing I want to share, and this is going to be the final article that I'm going to share, is it adds to all of the chaos that's happening. And thank you, GSPS, for the gift. It adds to all of the chaos, right? So it says half of Americans expect U.S. civil war, arms markets explosion. Half of Americans expect civil war in the United States in the next few years. I think it's closer than that, right? A growing distrust of democratic institutions is found in American society. In addition, many citizens buy weapons and admit that they are ready to use them against their political opponents. According to experts, all this shows that the country is on the verge of a new internal conflict, writes The Guardian. In the past, Dr. Garen Wintemut, who founded a Center for the Study of Gun Violence in California, scoffed at warnings of an impending American Civil War, calling them crazy. Now he has changed his mind, writes The Guardian. Wintemut has long observed that before presidential elections, Americans are actively procuring weapons. Usually after the vote, that enthusiasm would fade, but not this time. In January 2020, gun sales skyrocketed. Wintemut told The Guardian, "We knew that unlike previous booms in the markets, this one was not over. People are still buying guns like crazy." The expert wanted answers. The poll conducted by the Wintemut Center found that half of Americans expect civil war in the United States in the coming years. According to the study, one in five Americans believe that political violence is justified in some cases. In addition, about 40% said they are ready to abandon democracy in order to put a strong leader at the head of the state. Who is that? Trump? Combined with previous research, and I'm not saying any leader good, to be honest with you, I don't. Combined with previous research, these findings suggest a continuing alienation and distrust of American democratic society and its institutions. Substantial minorities of the population approve of violence, including death, to achieve political goals, the report's authors conclude. Wintemut notes that many respondents who expect civil war say it is somewhat likely. Kleinfeld also sees the future without optimism. We're getting to a point where if the Trump faction wins, then I think we're going to see sustained extremely high levels of violence for the foreseeable future. And if he loses, then in my opinion, everything will be even worse, said the expert. So my whole thing about this is I think that, when they talk about civil war, once again, it's always about us, right? It's always about the Negro. And why do I say that, right? I mean, like, even right now, right? We're seeing that they're still hanging us from trees. First thing they say is it was suicide, right? I mean, black folks usually don't commit suicide. I mean, not like they're showing. I mean, it's rare. Let's put it that way. It's rare. But now, every time a black man is hung, you think a black man gonna choose a tree to hang himself as a means of suicide? Please, right? But now we have the threat of a civil war, and I guarantee you the targets is going to be us. What do you think, Brother Kara?
Well, I remember for them, it's not necessarily a lynching in their eyes. It's more or less an actual blood sacrifice, right? The blood, that's the precious blood, right? Well, this is the Most High's people, so let's go ahead and sacrifice them to this principality, right? That's been the carnage, right? That's been the blood nature, the bloodlust, as you will, with our people, that they have for our people. And so, of course, that's going to be, well, this is usually how it appeases our principality, this daughter of Babylon, this amalgamation of Babylon. But at the same time, they know who is also looking, right? These are all of the other nations. And so, if I would say this, would there be a cyber attack on the US? Absolutely. If you don't think that there would not be a cyber attack, you're going to be dead wrong. The reason that they would do a cyber attack, and I'm going to say this, it's going to be an internal operation. Let's go ahead, collapse everything, because why? We can try to control the news sources and the news outlets and not have any type of social media come on out. The problem is a lot of our folks are very IT savvy, so we would have our satellite phones, any type of satellite communications on up there, and we would get a signal. Trust me, black folks is going to find a signal. All right. So, that's the whole situation right there. The problem is when they do that, okay? Because remember, I told you it's not a matter of if, but when they do that, that's going to spark an international crisis. Okay? What happened? What's going on? Well, because first, here's one thing. If you know that you are now being raked over the coals because you done owe somebody some money, the bill collector is making sure that you pay your bills, or you're going to find another $250,000. That's not a sustainable model. So what are you going to do when the bill collector shows up at your house knocking? What are you going to do? You're going to turn off your lights. Right? You're going to shut the blinds. Oh, nobody's here. Go away. Yep. Nobody's here. So what do you think is going to happen? That's exactly the same thing that they're going to do. Nobody's here. Shut it down. Oh, see, look, so we done got hit with the cyber attack. About all cyber attack, but you can't. You look. And the cyber attack isn't going to be like, your traditional cyber attack. It's just going to be, hey, the U.S. suffered a major cyber attack. Oh, okay. Well, how major is it? Because I can still use the bank. You know what I'm saying? I can still go to get some groceries. How major is this cyber attack? Well, you can't. They can't do any. They can't say everything that you're trying to get in and out of the United States. That's what them cyber terrorists hit. Oh, okay. Well, as long as I can log onto my bank account and look at my digital dollars. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we try to usually have this this thought process that it's going to be, oh, it's so dire and calamitous. No, it's not. It's just going to be, everything's going to be heavily censored. Hey, we're going through a cyber attack. You're not going to be able to get the responses that you want to get. You may not be able to get to, those DNS servers, right? Those exchanges that you're normally able to get outside of the United States, because we're going through a cyber attack. Yeah, that's how that thing is going to go. No, it's going to be kernelized, right? It's going to be kernelized. Look, you are in that kernel. You just got cut off now from the rest of the world. And guess what the rest of the world's going to do? They're going to panic. But they're not going to tell you that the rest of the world is panicking. Because why? Because there's no real digital communication going on. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's going to be their essence of a cyber attack. Now, hey, don't panic. Business is usual, right? And people are going to just be doing their thing nonetheless. Because why? You don't have to worry about an exchange. You don't have to worry about anything else, because the whole point is, look, I ain't going to pay no more bills anymore. So we're going to be looking at, you get what I'm saying? So we're going to be looking at the cyber attack. Okay, there is a cyber attack going on. But man, how did all these grocery prices stable on out? Because it's going to, I'm telling you, it's going to be for a few weeks like that. Well, I know something's bad going over there in Europe, but I mean, we can't get no more news.
Yep.
I know something's going on, but we don't really know what's going on. So then now the rest of the world is going to panic and say, "Oh man, these folks are going into their last agenda, their last phase of what? Their genocide plan." You realize that's going to be the panic. Oh snap! They done cut everybody off. They done cut off the internet for everybody. We don't know what's going on. Or is black people just getting just shot down in droves?
Exactly. So look, family, if you're a moderator on the other channel, just shout out to me and I'll make you a moderator here. I might overlook it, so it's not personal, right? So Brother Karras, finally, when it comes to all of this that you're seeing, right? What's your thoughts in terms of the second Exodus? I'm always thinking of this, right? Because I think even with all of us, we don't want to be here no more, right? I don't want to be here no more. I'm really thinking about how I can get out of here, and then my family ain't on the same page with me, right? And it's like you the man of the house, you can't just up and leave your family. What's your thoughts in terms of this? I mean, you think we out of here soon? You think we got to go through a lot more? What's your thought?
Well, I think it's going to be progressive, because you have to understand, traditionally speaking, the loss of resources or perceived loss of resources will always create a negative impact on the Israelite/Black community. That's just no doubt about it. They are who their forefathers are. We are who our forefathers were. You see? So, that's just how it goes. So if you're going to have that thought process, which they always do, if you haven't heard them ask for forgiveness of that thought process, then guess what's going to happen? They're going to go right back into that thought process. So what will happen is, then we will be targeted for our resources. So when you're targeted for your resources, guess what? You're going to be in your communities, you're going to be in your areas, and guess what's going to happen? You're going to have to flee. You will not be able to be comfortably living in your house or doing what you think you're going to be able to do. This is what's going to happen. I don't know if you all remember Rosewood and things of that nature. Folks had to live out in the swamp.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm looking at some swamps around my house right now. If I had to flee.
Well, that's sort of a good place to be, because I mean, you at least probably could get some fish or something to eat,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're gonna gut some fish. You're gonna, get that skin off of them. And just make sure you put out the fire and keep on moving. You know what I'm saying? Because we laugh at that, but that's actually the case.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is where we would be heading to once things are at that level. And it's not to say, well, it'll never be there. Actually, yeah, it could be there in literally less than 30 days. We don't really know. We don't really have a good understanding of how liquidity in the markets actually work. Your money can shut down within a matter of hours.
Yeah.
Look at what they did in Greece. Look at what happened in Lebanon. Look at Turkey. Look at Argentina on certain days, and then they have to go to the IMF and ask for a loan.
So
You
let me
get what
ask
I'm
you this,
saying?
Brother Karras. My theory is that they're going to use this war, with the lack of resources and all this, lack of water, lack of food, to implement FEMA camps, right? And therefore, at the FEMA camps is where you're going to go and get your supplies of food, your ration food and your ration water, right? Some people are going to be locked up, some people won't. And then they're going to implement through the digital system, which is why they have it on fast forward, implementing it supposedly December 13th, right? Then they can control you, and they're going to use the digital system as an excuse of how we can easily distribute people's ration food, right? So you're going to be, initially you won't be a part of the social tracking system, right? It's just going to be a means to manage the distribution of food and goods, and people are going to get used to it. And then it's going to be part of the system from now on, that anything you want, you're going to be part of the social tracking system that they fully implement in the future. What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, let's turn the page and let's go back to Tulsa, right? Let's go back to Greenwood. Okay, remember in Greenwood, the black folks that were able to kind of flee and get to the safety structures, which would be kind of the Red Cross and things of that nature. They went to the Red Cross, and now that's umbrellaed under FEMA, right? Which is umbrellaed under Department of Homeland Security. So there's going to be, some sort of a federal and or state emergency response mechanism, right? And so that, I believe, is probably what most black folks would do, right? Well, let's just sit here because this is going to be guarded, and this is going to be, safe, which more than likely it may be, because let me tell you, reports will always going out. Hey, this is happening. Hey, this is going on for real. There'll be emergency UN meetings and things of that nature, and there'll probably be a very quick emergency response to everything. Because you want to know why? Because here's the thing: the moment that there's troubles here, guess what? It's easy to stop fighting amongst yourselves and say, look, that's the real target. You get what I'm saying?
So
Because
you think the urban apologists are going to stop fighting with us?
No. They'll still be fighting with us, even when they're forced to flee. You're gonna be running around next Sunday. Ain't no 400 years.
Yeah.
Isn't that your house going up in flames?
Yeah.
Well, ain't no 400 years. Okay, well, aren't we fleeing just like what it says? Flee out of here. But you got to understand, those are the mechanisms that always happens. Look, why do you think you had that with Darfur? Why do you think you saw that with the Tutsis and the Hutus, right, in Rwanda?
Yeah.
You see, there's mechanisms there, even though the country may quote unquote be shut off. No, there's people that's still reporting on the ground. There's people that's going to say, hey, look, hey, time out. I have folks over there. You got folks over there. Yeah, you're right.
It was interesting about the Rwandan war is that I didn't know that the Catholic Church was behind that. I'm like, the fact that they, pretty much implemented the Inquisition, and I think Benya was the one who showed that with the churches, right, and how they were still hanging clothes in the churches just like they did with the Inquisition. I had no idea.
Well, yeah. So it's they're behind everything, but the mechanisms are still, the same, right? We flee, we have to take shelter. Someone will provide shelter. Look, and this is the thing. So I want folks to not be scared, when you get the shovel, right? Don't be scared when you do have to actually physically move. One of the things that the Most High is good about is He prepares you. He prepares you for that day, for that hour. Okay. And then when that day and that hour comes, you're not going to be in shambles. Believe it or not, you will have a peace on you. Because you want to know why? Because you prepared for this. Spiritually, you prepared for this. Now you just have to walk. And when you walk, you're gonna say, okay, is everybody here? Is everybody there? And I'm not gonna lie to you. Start practicing that with your family. Hey, if we need to leave, where are we going to go? You pick out a spot, designate a spot, a rally point, especially if you have older kids or family members that are satellite to each other, right? Hey, this is going to be a rally spot here, and then we'll all just kind of hunker down because we're not to operate in a spirit of fear at all, but we can be prepared. See, when you are fearful is because you have the lack of preparation.
Yep.
Right? This is where, look, I have all my documents in one place. Okay, it's time to roll. I have my kids' documents together. Okay, if we got to go, this is where we're going. If we need to leave, this is where we're leaving. If I need to get to the airport, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop off my car and try to make it to a country or somewhere that is very laxed on passports and then go from there. Try to make it somewhere into the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And then you can actually, because the Caribbean, believe it or not, is very laxed on a lot of passport standards that's there. You could go to like St. Thomas. You can go to, either the British version.
We all going by Sister Shonda.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my first step. Look, Sister Shonda, hey, look, listen. I know things are. I'll take one of them kids' bunk beds. Hey, you sleep on the floor.
Sister Shonda, you gonna have 1,000 people by your house.
Sister Shonda's like, you gonna sleep out in the tent, and that's cool with me too. She said that them chickens and stuff over there, a lot of chickens are gonna go missing.
Yeah.
Black folks gonna be like, where did all these roosters go on this island?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going over there by Sister Shonda's house? They got a party going on over there or something? Oh, just a bunch of Israelite refugees over there.
Oh man. Yeah,
So Brother Karras, any final comments on this? We'll just wrap it up.
Yeah. Hey, obviously, Minister Coben, thanks for having me on to share. You should say I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're gonna be the pit. You're gonna be that pit stop. A lot of us are gonna have those aching dogs trying to, have some suitcases and everything else on out there. You better just get yourself a duffel bag with whatever you can throw on your shoulders, right?
Yeah, but, exactly.
Exactly. Just meet people and be like, I want my laptop, man. Just leave your laptop. Just get yourself a phone. You're gonna be all right with a SIM card. They got SIM cards. They got technology on other places of the world. You're gonna be all right.
Yeah.
So I would say, look, just don't fall in love with this place. Don't fall in love with your possessions. Right? Your possessions could actually lead you to destruction. That's why it says, look, touch not those unclean things, right? Get up on out of her.
Yeah.
Get up on out. So
don't look back.
Exactly. I won't look back. I'm not trying to turn into a pillar of salt or
I know that's right.
A pillar of monkeypox. So yeah, but this. Yeah, I honestly, I didn't think it was gonna go this quickly because I had my You know what? When was that broadcast, Jacoba? Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, when we're like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was
That
thinking,
last one where we came up with our estimate of when we out of here and stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah, about 3 weeks ago.
yeah. I was like, yeah, definitely late. I said definitely 2023, 24 time period.
Yeah.
Man, they done blew up somebody's daughter.
Yep.
Yo, let me
Exactly.
revise that count.
Yeah. Exactly. See, that's the thing. You never know because what is it, that unknown, right? They throw in that unknown situation. What was it?
Pulp Fiction, right? Was that unknown?
Like what is it? Star Wars. Remember the Ewoks?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
were the unknown element.
No, I'll get my Samuel L. Jackson on. It's those unknowns. Man, they be throwing something out in just a second. It's like, yeah, nothing's gonna happen. You wake on up. What is going on?
Yeah.
He said,
And
"We
see
out."
that's the funny thing. I mean, I don't know if it's funny, but one day we all gonna wake up. Remember what happened on 911, and everybody woke up and like, what the heck going on? You see planes here and that and all this stuff. Same thing gonna happen, right? We're gonna wake up one day and all hell gonna be broke loose across the world, and everybody ain't gonna know what to do who not prepared. And that's why I'm saying y'all need to get prepared. I mean, even me, I need to do more preparation. Like I said, like for instance, I'm back in Dallas, right? I know in the winter it's gonna be freezing. I know for a fact this winter gonna be worse than the last few winters, right? I feel it in my spirit because of all these judgments. So I need to get some extra firewood, some extra food, some extra water, all that, right? Because
Yeah.
we're gonna have to make it through some of these times, and we need to
Wait,
be prepared.
Minister Kobe, think about this. I want you to think about this. Remember, they said men their hearts will be failing. They're going to be dying because their hearts are going to be failing. Now, think about this. This is just my speculation, and I have to be very, very, cognizant. But think about that. The lollipop has been introduced into someone's system. And I don't know about you, family, but I've been seeing on LinkedIn folks my age, around, late 30s, early 40s, having heart attacks like it's nothing. Oh, this person passed away from a heart attack. This person passed away from a heart attack. And I'm like, man. So just think about now, if you have that stress on you, people do die just from the lack of being able to produce the actual when you will have so much adrenaline that it could actually stop your heart. You could actually have so much adrenaline that could stop your heart because of fear. Exactly, Garth, the cortisol. Now think about that right now with all this going on. I don't know, man. I always kind of think about Obadiah, right? When you're going to be treading down on their necks. Well, why? They may be just dropping dead in the streets. I think that's in Micah chapter 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that's the thing with me, right? And like for you, right? You see what's coming, right? This sort of the burden of those who see what's happening and what's coming, and a lot of people ain't gonna be here no more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you warn, and all you do is get gaslighted, right? And it's like there's nothing you can do to help our people, dude. They don't want this. I mean, I'm not talking about everybody, right? But the Bible says only a remnant will return to the Most High. That's sort of scary, right? That
Mm-hmm.
only a remnant gonna return. I'm like, all of us need to wake up, right? All of us need to return. All of us need to repent. But for our efforts, right, we're abused, we're chastised, we're lied on, castigated, all these things, which comes with the job, like I said. But I see these things coming, there's nothing you can do to help people, dude. It's like you just gonna sit there, all you can do really is pray for them, and you're gonna watch people drop. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're gonna see thousands dropping. There's nothing you can do. And it's, to me, I'm like, this war is unlike anything I've ever seen in my life. It's serious. It's so serious that you see it happening, but the rest of the world can't see it. But it's happening right in their face every day. I'm like, what is wrong with y'all? Y'all can't see this. Y'all can't see these judgments. Y'all can't see people dying. Y'all can't see what's coming. Y'all can't see that millions. See, right now it's thousands. Y'all understand that millions are going to be gone? The Bible said man going to become rare like the gold of Ophir. I'm like, I have a problem with that, right? Because it's like I'm seeing this stuff and nobody, I'm not going to say nobody listening, but there's nothing we can do, right? In the flesh. We want to do stuff in the flesh. We want to help our family. I got family members I've been preaching to for years. It's finally here. They still don't get it. I don't know what to do other than to say, Lord have mercy, So that's just me and my rant, because I'm like, it's just scary on one hand, right? And then, also, Brother Karras, the Bible says, if you make it past the sword, then flee out, right? So it's like, okay, Lord, we don't know for a fact if we're gonna make it past the sword, right? So, that's why, like I told y'all, I'm trying to live right. I'm trying to do what the Most High tell me to do. Dot them I's, cross them T's, not in order to obtain righteousness, but to live a holy life, right? So, what's your thoughts on that, Karras? The futility of what well, let me put it this way: it seems futile that you try to help everybody and wake them up, but all you get is, castigated for it.
Well, I'm a Star Trek nerd, and I always think that these folks are the Borg. Resistance is futile. No, no, for real. It is hard because you have to understand when you're looking at the end. Not many people want to stare at the end either, and the end is really the beginning, right? And it's not the end of anything so magnificent, it's literally the end of our captivity, right? That's really what it is. I don't look at it that, well, we're going to make things better. It's going to turn around, and that I understand what they're trying to do to not shake themselves and stuff like that, because they've already been cast into the net, right? But I look at it like this: even though it feels like it's a futile exercise or an exercise in futility, right?
Yeah,
We
exactly.
still have to perform the exercise because you don't know who's listening that may have been saved right before the day of destruction. Hey, Brother Karras, Brother Yakoba, Brother Taya, Sister Shonda, I was this close. Sister Maya, I was this close. Sister Holder, excuse me, this close. And I look at it like this: that our jobs here are getting ready to wrap up.
Exactly.
Right? You didn't know that the Most High just had you on a 10-year contract job. He only had me on a 3-year contract job. Okay.
I wanted to ask you that, not to interrupt you, but I was listening to you and you were saying, y'all don't understand. This job was only supposed to be for a short time, and that time of it ending is near. I feel the same way, Brother Karras. Can you clarify what you were saying on that? Because I feel the exact same thing, that my mission, at least at this level, is coming to an end. What's your thought?
Okay, so yeah, all right. So prophetically speaking, I don't speak about like current events, or I don't speak about anybody else. I just know, like, prophetically speaking, when I say, okay, the Most High had me on this journey, right? He had me on this journey for this season. And I understood this season because the season had to open the doors to other things. in my life that were, honestly, I never would have understood it or grasped it until the Most High had me come down here, because I didn't like to be a vocal person. I didn't like to be a person that would even, put themselves on out there like that. And, hey, I'll just make a little comment and go from there. But when the Most High had to like thrust me on out, it wasn't for the fact of, well, I had to go through things because the Most High doesn't like me and he just wanted to destroy me. No, I actually had to go through things because I was literally used as a guardian redeemer for my family. And not in the sense of, hey, certain folks didn't take the lollipop and stuff like that. No, I have folks take the lollipop, and I couldn't do anything about that, because you want to know why? The Most High gives you free will.
Yeah.
However, there were other things going on that I had no idea of until the Most High had to give me a separation time. So now the time that I was doing things, I knew that things were wrapping up. It doesn't mean that I was going to just up and quit and be like, man, I'm just gonna sit back, get off of this thing, and just be done. No,
Yeah.
it was this. No, when you're done and you're off to the next level of what the Most High needs you to do,
Exactly.
because you're going to get stopped from doing it. And when I say you get stopped, I really mean like when this thing happens, right? I'll be on there until they cut the internet. All you see is just a circle, or no service or interrupted. And then it's like, okay, well, thank you, Father, because I know I need to get off this laptop and run and get my stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come make this live. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Gotta go. See you in the kingdom. Peace.
Yeah.
So that's why, I had said that. I said, okay, it's not that this is over. Oh man, it's over. No, it's like you're getting ready to step into a new season, but he prepares for you to get into that new season. You get what I'm saying? You
Yeah,
start to
exactly.
get prepared for that new season before you even realize you're going to go into that season, because there was already things in place that, bang, once that goes, okay, that goes. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so that's the thing. And because this becomes it's difficult, especially when I'm there at my regular job and I'm still answering questions and emails and Facebook, chats and things of that nature. But listen, again, I do that because I know that we don't have that much time.
Yep.
And we don't have that much time left. It's not to panic. It's just that we don't have that much time left operating in the system the way that we have been operating. So when we have to, when the cord gets cut, right? It's not okay. Well, this is destruction. It's not destruction. It's just that now, okay, guess what? Now you're gonna start telling your families, hey, guess what? We're here because this is there. If you hadn't, if you wanted to be quiet on this, well, you're going to start, what you're going to say is going to start having a lot more power and weight, because now it can be seen. A lot of things that we say and that we really contribute is it's just prophetic, right? We're going off
Mhm.
of the word, and it hasn't happened yet, but it is going to happen, and that's what's going to happen. Well, for unbelievers, and I'm not going to say, well, just because you're an unbeliever, you're a heathen. That's not the case. But for a lot of folks that really don't believe the testimony, when they see things that start to manifest, then they're going to be in panic because it's manifested. That is now the time for us. We're in a different season. Hey, don't panic, right? this is what the Most High is doing. Don't fear. This is what the Most High has already prepared you for. This is what we've already been warned of, right? Because the word says to do what? To fear not. But he always has his people. There are people that will tell you, look, this is what's happening. And that was a platform that I use because I'm like, look, I'm reaching out to Gentiles, but I'm also reaching out to Israelites. If you want to listen, you're going to listen. If not, then that's okay because it's not going to hurt my feelings. It's just when the season is over, then you're going to be looking. Hey, where's Brother Karras at? I want to listen some more. Brother Karras is done.
Exactly.
It's a wrap.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing. I suggest people download the videos, right? Because I think what's going to happen is, and just spiritual discernment, I believe. But when this war kicks off, they're going to implement martial law. They're going to shut things down. You think that the censorship on this these channels here and Facebook is bad? It's going to get worse, right? Because now you're going to be under martial law because of a global war, which means you're not going to have access to anything. You're not going to be able to say anything that you think is not even controversial. You won't be able to say, right? They're going to lock all that down. And the time coming where you're not going to get the message. You're not going to be able to hear the truth, right? And so you have to be built up and be prepared and have all of that in you already, because you won't be ready for it, and it's coming, right? I at least for me, I sense it. I sense a lot of things, and I'm like, I've learned that that spiritual discernment is powerful and shouldn't be ignored, right? Because it usually that's what comes to pass, right? That's, at least for me, that's what happens. So, Brother Karras, I want to thank you for coming on and being a part of this discussion, and hopefully the family will share this video and help wake people up about the times we're living in, and that it's dangerous. It's dangerous times that we're in, and I don't think people realize how dangerous it is. So also, I want to thank all of the Super Chat supporters. I want to thank all of the Cash App supporters and our patrons very much. And also, family, please support the Dry Bones Project, because a lot of us probably going to be going, we make it past the sword, back to the continent. Peace and blessings, Israel. Your captivity is ending. Love you with the love of the Messiah.